Humans rarely do right by animals. After all, we've been destroying their habitat and hunting them for sport. Still, despite the circumstances, these creatures don't shy away from approaching us when they need a helping hand. And we're glad to say the kindest of us have risen to the occasion. In today's video, we'll be going over 30 animals that asked humans for help. It seems like this kangaroo hopped into the wrong place, but lucky for him, he got to keep his head as a group of passerbys were able to get him out of a sticky situation. The kid on the scene was nice enough to leave him with some parting advice. This poor cow found herself unable to get out of the mud hole, but lucky for her, people were ready to put their backs into getting her out. These construction workers took time out of their busy schedules to reunite this family of elephants. Using the excavator at hand, the workers filled up the ditch she was in until she was able to climb out. They even got thanked for their services at the end. This poor canine somehow found herself stuck in the mud after a heavy downpour. After being stuck for 2 whole days, some strangers stopped by to help, and when they did, they discovered the real reason for her panic. There were 2 more puppies buried underneath that needed help. They didn't look in the best of conditions, but thankfully, with the right help, all 3 of them made it. With its beak lost, it seemed like the eagle's glory days came to an end. But with the help of some doctors and a 3D printing machine, he was back to soaring in the sky and feeding himself. Instead of taking selfies with the whale that washed ashore, this group of people rallied together to push him back into the water. If that fin wave is proof of anything, it's that the whale certainly appreciated the gesture. At first, this looks like a pregnancy gone wrong, but that's not the case. The dog is carrying around an abdomen filled with 10 liters of water. Thankfully, he bumped into the right people who got him the help that he desperately needed. Cancer isn't just a human thing. After this poor pied hornbill lost its beak to the disease, he got a new one thanks to his hard-working team of doctors. Considering how aggressive swans are, this one probably thought that this man was there to hurt her poor kid stuck in the fence. But for once, trusting a human paid off because soon enough, both of them were swimming in the pond. When disaster struck, this poor canine wasn't fast enough to make it out of the house. Lucky for him, his owner didn't forget about him and got the necessary help to get him out. He's still got more fetch games in the park to look forward to. Things didn't look bright at all for this kitten. The poor feline couldn't even stand on its feet when freed from the net. Judging from his condition, there was little doubt about his survival. But fortunately for the little guy, he was surrounded by angels who nursed him back to health. Soon enough, he was jumping around. We don't know how, but this kangaroo ended up in the freezing lake. It was clearly suffering from hypothermia since the poor thing was too frozen to move. Luckily, a couple Samaritans carried him out of the water, a gesture that moved the kangaroo so much he couldn't stop thanking them. Land is the last place where a fish should be. Unfortunately, this 10-ton whale found itself stuck in muddy water. Normally, that'd be a death sentence, but the whale had better luck than most sea creatures. It found itself in the presence of the kindest people on Earth, who poured water on it non-stop for 20 hours to keep it alive. Rescue workers were finally able to return the whale to the water with a tugboat. Sometimes a family isn't 2 birds but a drone and a single dad. This baby vulture found a home with a drone and the people controlling it after its mom died. They kept feeding the baby until it could fly out on its own. You know, it really says something when you're willing to put aside your fears and help out a scavenger. This poor squirrel's lucky the passerby spotted it when he did. The little furball was convulsing and having a heart attack. Thankfully, the man was able to bring him back with some well-timed CPR and a little glucose. He was back to full health. We don't know how this fox ended up in the basement, but lucky for him, a stranger decided to get him out by letting down some rope. The 4-legged animal was back to hopping around in no time. Construction workers ought to be careful when getting rid of extra tar. This poor canine ended up stuck in a tar pit. The situation was so bad that they had to bring in an excavator to pull him out. He didn't look like he was gonna make it at all, but believe it or not, miracles do happen. This wolf had the misfortune of running into a trap. He saw no hope of getting himself free until a kind stranger walked by who risked his own life to get him free. That must have been a shocker for the animal since he was probably used to getting hunted. After a forest fire, this kind woman took the time to pour some water on the burnt hands of the kangaroo. Typically, camels can walk for 100 miles without feeling the need to drink water, but these groups of desert animals had been pushed past their limits. Lucky for them, a couple of guardian angels brought their misery to an end. There are a lot of questions to be asked here, the chief one being how did the goat end up on the electric lines? Getting it down seemed like another mystery on its own. The folks tried a ladder at first but no avail. Thankfully, they were able to work something out with some rope, a tree, and the strength of Hercules. It looks like this young mom needed a hand or two with building a new nest for her young one. She was more than happy to ask the woman nearby. Born without a beak, this goose had little to no chances of surviving since it could barely feed itself. Fortunately for him, a group of Brazilian scientists was all in to build him a new 3D printed beak, granting him a whole new life. This man didn't think twice before carrying the lost dolphin back to where it belonged. Despite the dangers, this fox didn't shy away from approaching some humans when it found itself stuck in a pickle or a jar to be more accurate. And this man might have just saved the bird's life by giving it some water. There's nothing more painful than hearing this wolf howl for help. Luckily, his prayers or howls in this case were heard as some stranger stopped by to cut him free. It was back to running in the snow for him. You really have a heart of gold if you're willing to step anywhere near the king cobra himself and quench his thirst. We would never. When their home island was sinking in the croc-infested waters, rescuers decided to get this herd of giraffes to safe land. They even got a custom-built barge called the Giraffe. The month-long operation ended up saving the lives of highly endangered subspecies of giraffes. With floodwaters rising, anyone with a brain would have run in the opposite direction, but not this man. He braved the turbulent waters and got those dogs out. Alright, which of these clips shocked you the most? Did any of these animal-human interactions get you all teary? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Trend Joint, and we'll see you in the next one.